Hello everyone. Welcome to this presentation on business responsibility and sustainability reporting, commonly known as the BRSR framework. I am NVS Pavan. I am a chartered accountant. This presentation is going to be an overview of the BRSR framework. We will first go through the history of sustainability reporting in India. Then we will understand the 9 NGRBC principles on which the BRSR framework is based. We will then understand the objectives of BRSR and know about its three versions. We will touch upon the concept of market capitalization for determining the applicability of BRSR. And lastly, we will discuss the structure of BRSR Comprehensive framework, but in brief. So let's get started. The concept of sustainability reporting is not new to India, particularly to the top 1000 listed companies on the stock exchange. It started way back in 2012 when SEBI launched the Business Responsibility Reporting Framework. This framework was based on the National Voluntary Guidelines of the MCA. The top 100 companies listed on the stock exchange had to report their non-financial data on environment and social parameters. Later in 2015, the scope of BRR was increased to the top 500 listed entities, and again increased to top 1000 listed entities in 2019. Companies also started reporting their corporate social responsibility expenditure as per the Companies Act from 2014 onwards. In 2019, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs had to make some changes in the NVGs, taking into account the national and international developments in the area of sustainable business practices. Therefore, the NVGs were replaced by the National Guidelines on Responsible Business Conduct, or the NGRBC principles. Based on these NGRBC principles, in 2021, SEBI introduced a new sustainability reporting framework called the BRSR, or Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting Framework. Obviously, it was made mandatory for the top 1000 listed entities who had been earlier reporting under the BRR. BRSR has plugged the gaps of BRR in terms of accuracy and depth of reporting. In 2023, SEBI took a bold step. It made assurance of the 9 key KPIs of BRSR Core mandatory for the top 150 listed companies and their value chain partners. Having understood the background of BRSR, let us now take a look at the 9 NGRBC principles framed by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. These principles form the bedrock of the BRSR framework. The NGRBC principles have been designed to assist the businesses to embrace responsible practices and perform beyond the requirements of regulatory compliance. Principle 1 is related to good governance. Businesses should conduct and govern themselves with integrity and in a manner that is ethical, transparent, and accountable. Companies need to formulate a set of policies and procedures to promote ethical conduct. They need to have a proper governing structure and need to train their employees continuously to uphold integrity and be transparent in all business operations. They obviously need to comply with all legal and statutory requirements and obligations. Principle 2 is related to conducting environmentally sustainable businesses. Companies should provide goods and services in a manner that is sustainable and safe. They need to adopt resource efficient and low carbon emitting methods throughout the life cycle of their products. They also need to responsibly manage the waste generated by their products and packaging. Principle 3 is related to well-being of human resources. Companies should respect and promote the well-being of all employees, including those in their value chain. Companies should ensure safe and healthy work environment. They should support the work-life balance of the employees and offer essential training on skill upgradation and safety to all its workers and employees. Principle 4 of the NGRBC relates to respecting the interests of stakeholders. Companies need to categorize their stakeholders and engage with them separately on a periodic basis. They need to take consideration of any feedback received from the stakeholders into their business operations. Principle 5 relates to human rights. Companies need to protect and promote human rights. Human rights are inherent to every individual and are inviolable. Companies need to ensure that the workplaces are free of any discrimination, forced labor, or sexual harassment. Principle number 6 relates to the efforts to protect the environment. Companies need to establish systems to pinpoint the environmental impacts of their operations. They need to proactively identify such environmental impacts and take robust steps to mitigate them. Principle 7 relates to having a good presence in the society. Companies may engage with the government in shaping policies, but it should be done with a strong sense of responsibility and transparency. Principle number 8 relates to promoting inclusive growth and equitable development of the local community. Companies need to advance business initiatives that contribute to the economic upliftment and improving the quality of life of the local communities. They need to preserve the traditional knowledge which the communities have in their minds. Principle number 9 relates to providing service to the consumers in a responsible manner. Companies should educate their consumers about safe usage and disposal of their products. They should refrain from placing misleading ads. There should also be mechanisms in place to protect consumer data and their privacy. We may note here that all the NGRBC principles are related, they complement each other, and the expectation from the companies is to take up the requirements of the principles holistically. Having understood the NGRBC principles, which are the spirit of the BRSR, let us now try and understand the objectives of BRSR. BRSR was launched primarily so that companies start integrating environment, social, and governance practices in all their business operations. When the companies start reporting under the BRSR framework continuously every year, they are bound to gain maturity in their journey of sustainable business operations. The second objective of the BRSR is to provide global investors with an insight into the non-financial performance of the Indian companies, bringing them at par with the global sustainability reporting practices. Another objective of this standardized framework is to enable the analysts to have peer-to-peer comparison of the sustainability related performance within a particular industry. There are three versions of BRSR: BRSR Comprehensive, BRSR Core, and BRSR Lite. BRSR Comprehensive has got elaborate disclosures on all the 9 NGRBC principles. At present, it is mandatory for the top 1000 companies with highest market capitalization. BRSR Core is a subset of BRSR Comprehensive. It consists of 9 most important KPIs on which assurance from an independent practitioner is expected to be obtained. For the financial year 25-26, BRSR Core will be mandatory for the top 500 listed companies. BRSR Lite, as the name suggests, has simpler disclosures. It is a voluntary framework and may be used by the other listed companies or big unlisted companies to start their journey of sustainability reporting. In the last slide, it was mentioned that the BRSR Comprehensive is applicable to the top 1000 entities listed on the stock exchange. These 1000 listed companies are determined by their market capitalization on the stock exchange. In 2024, there was an amendment in the SEBI LODR regulations with respect to this market capitalization determination. As per the amended regulations, the stock exchanges need to arrive at a threshold market capitalization on 31st December instead of 31st of March. The 1000 companies having their market capitalization above this threshold on 31st of December need to report the BRSR for the subsequent financial year. This is a welcome amendment for a new entrant in the top 1000 companies club. Let us understand with an example. In case A, where there is a company by virtue of its market capitalization on 31st of December 2024 being above the threshold, falls in the list of top 1000 entities for the first time. It needs to start generating the BRSR related data and prepare the BRSR report for the financial year 25-26. It can use this period of January to March to develop internal controls to generate the necessary data. Similarly, let us case the example of another company in case B, whose market capitalization on 31st of December 2024 falls in the top 500 listed entities for the first time. The company now needs to engage an assurance provider to perform assurance and give a reasonable assurance report on its 9 BRSR Core KPIs for the financial year 25-26. Another interesting aspect of the amendment is shown in case C, where a company which has been reporting the BRSR falls out of the top 1000 listed entities on 31st of December 2025. It needs to continue reporting the BRSR for 3 consecutive financial years, that is 26-27, 27-28 and 28-29, irrespective of its market capitalization. Up to now, we have covered the history of BRSR, the foundation principles of BRSR, the objectives of BRSR, the 3 versions of BRSR, and the concept of market capitalization for the applicability of BRSR. Now finally, let us take a look at the actual structure of BRSR Comprehensive. It consists of 3 sections: A, B, and C. Section A consists of basic information like the name of the company, the contact information, the registered office, and whether an assurance has been taken on the BRSR information. Section B consists of management and process disclosures. It basically paints a picture about the extent to which the company has governance structure in place and adequate policies and approved procedures in place to address the various requirements of the framework. Section C is a very elaborate section wherein the company need to give quantitative and qualitative disclosures on the various KPIs under each of the 9 NGRBC principles. There are two kinds of KPIs: essential indicators, which are mandatory in nature for all the companies to disclose. These indicators generally relate to the sustainability practices of the company itself. The second type of KPI is leadership indicators, which are voluntary in nature. Generally, they relate to the sustainability practices of the value chain of the company. They also contain certain KPIs which show the proactiveness and stewardship of the company in making its business sustainable. So this was the background and the overview of the BRSR framework. In the next presentation, we will deep dive into the BRSR disclosures under each of the sections and under each of the principles in section C. Thank you for now. Bye bye.